They thought they could break me. A smug manager, her equally arrogant husband, and a system that rewarded overwork and punished efficiency. They gave me an impossible task, hoping I'd fail. But instead, I made them choke on their own lies and walked out richer than ever. If you ever had a boss who took credit for your work or tried to crush your spirit just to feed their ego, this story's for you. Hit that like button, because this one a masterclass in professional revenge. The kind where karma doesn't whisper, it screams. I used to work for one of those massive IT consulting firms, the kind that makes you feel lucky to even have a job, but secretly bleeds you dry. They sold innovation and solutions to clients, but what they really specialized in was unpaid overtime and stress-induced burnout. I led a small but tight-knit functional migration team, just 3 of us, but damn, we were good. For 3 years, we'd worked closely with a major client, learning every data quirk, every undocumented process, every tiny inconsistency buried deep in their system. So when the big migration project came around, we were ready. The timeline was supposed to be brutal. 18 months of grinding, weekends lost, relationships ruined. But because we actually knew what we were doing, we were ahead of schedule almost the entire time. By the time the rest of the company was drowning in chaos and bugs, our team had 99% of the data migrated and validated. 2 weeks before the official migration date, we were done. I remember sitting there that Friday, coffee in hand, the office nearly empty because most teams were still in crunch mode. My analyst looked up from his monitor and said, "So, are we actually done?" I smiled. "Yeah, we are." We spent the last couple weeks just maintaining daily updates. Nothing major. It was the calmest I'd felt in years. But not everyone was happy about that. There was another manager on the project. I'll call her Clara. She technically outranked me, but her part of the migration was a mess. Bad planning, rush design, untested scripts, the works. Her team was pulling 12-hour shifts just to keep her mess from collapsing, and she hated us for being calm. Every time she walked past our desks, I could feel her eyes burning through me. She'd make little comments. "Wow, must be nice to have so little to do," or "I guess some teams don't understand what real work looks like." I ignored her. Results spoke louder than her insecurity. Then came migration day, a Saturday. Everyone came in expecting an all-nighter. By noon, my team was done. Data validated. Client signed off. Green light across the board. We clocked out before lunch. That Monday, I got an official commendation letter from the client. They praised our efficiency, our precision, even our professionalism. Clara? She got a complaint letter. Her team had worked the entire weekend, breaking systems and scrambling fixes. The next week, Clara called me into a meeting with her and my mentor, a senior manager who'd been my friend once. "Since your part of the project's wrapped up," Clara began, her tone dripping with false sweetness, "we need you to stay on standby. Handle any incidents, bugs, or complaints that come up from the client side." I nodded. "Of course. Shouldn't be much, though. Everything's been stable." She smirked. "We'll see." It turned out to be exactly as I predicted. In a month, we got maybe 5 incidents, all minor. My senior analyst and I handled them in minutes. So we used our time productively. He started learning a new programming language. I updated my resume, quietly, methodically, but I didn't realize that Clara was watching, waiting. When the quarterly evaluations rolled around, I was feeling confident. The client loved us. We'd finished early, saved the company time and money, and avoided a disaster. I was expecting an A rating, exceeds expectations. Instead, Clara and my so-called mentor gave me a C. Their reason? "We didn't see any pressure on your work. You seem to lack motivation." Lack motivation. I sat there stunned. Are you serious? We delivered ahead of schedule. The client literally commended us. Clara crossed her arms. "That's just it. You were too comfortable. It doesn't show drive when you're not pushing harder." I wanted to laugh, or maybe scream. They were punishing me for being efficient, for not looking stressed enough. I walked out of that room with my stomach burning. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed their smirks, their tone, the absolute audacity. AC meant I was one evaluation away from being flagged as underperforming. It was a warning shot. They weren't done with me yet. A few days later, Clara assigned me to a new project, led by her husband, Mark. And that's when the real hell began. And that, I think, was the moment she decided to destroy me. Mark was everything Clara was, just with a deeper voice and worse temper. He called me into his office, tossed a fat folder onto the table, and said, "We need 122 integrations between systems, 4 months. You'll lead it." I blinked. 122 integrations? That's... He cut me off. "You did migrations fast before. You can handle this." I opened the folder and immediately saw the problem. This wasn't just ambitious. It was impossible. For context, in Clara's own previous project, it took 2 years to complete just 12 integrations. I said as calmly as I could, "Mark, I'll give it a shot, but realistically, we'll need at least a year. Maybe more." He smirked like he was testing me. 4 months. No excuses. Make it happen. I went back to my desk, shaking my head, but I documented everything. That night, I sent him an email outlining the schedule, the dependencies, and the timeline they'd taken before, just to have it on record. Then came July and August, the 2 worst months for productivity in our line of work. Half the client staff went on holiday. Mark and Clara, gone too. I spent those 2 months chasing ghosts. Emails unanswered, meetings canceled, stakeholders out of office. Still, by September, I had 6 integrations fully completed and another 6 waiting on final validation. That was miraculous progress. But when Mark returned, sunburned and smug from vacation, he didn't see progress. He saw a target. He stormed into my cubicle. "What the hell is this? 6? You were supposed to be done with everything." I looked him in the eye and said, "Mark, this was an unrealistic timeline. I told you that before you approved it." He slammed his hand on my desk. "You're lazy. My wife was right about you. You lack motivation." Something in me snapped. For months, I'd been calm, professional, patient. But this man, this smug pup of his wife, had just crossed the line. I stood up. "You want motivation? Fine. Here it is. I'm not working a minute past what I'm paid for. No more unpaid overtime. You made the schedule. You live with it." He went red. "You'll do what I say, or what?" I cut in. "You'll fire me for refusing unpaid labor? Go ahead." The silence that followed was heavy, electric. He glared, speechless. I packed up my laptop, left the room, and didn't look back. The next day, I got a call from my mentor, the same one who'd stabbed me in the back during the evaluation. Her tone was oddly soft. "They're considering terminating you without pay for insubordination." I laughed. "Really? You might want to tell them to check their own emails first." "What emails?" "The one where I told Mark the schedule was unrealistic. The one he acknowledged before approving it." There was a pause, a long one. Then she said quietly, "Send it to me." I did. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. Her voice had changed, flatter, more careful. "What do you want, exactly?" I leaned back in my chair. "Finally, leverage. I want out. Full severance. And you'll mark it as a voluntary resignation, not a firing. Otherwise, I'll make sure HR sees every time-stamped warning about the impossible workload and every mention of unpaid overtime." Silence again. Then, "I'll see what I can do." By the end of the day, I was signing exit papers. Full severance. No black marks. No questions. I walked out smiling. Later, I heard the rest of the story from old colleagues. 4 of my former teammates also quit. The project dragged on for twice the estimated time. Mark nearly got fired. The only reason he didn't was because Clara pulled strings to save him. They both burned through their credibility, their reputations, and nearly their careers. All because they tried to punish me for being efficient. Sometimes revenge doesn't come in flames or fury. Sometimes it's a quiet smile as you walk away. knowing people who wronged you are trapped in the chaos they created. They wanted to break me. Instead, they broke themselves. If you've ever dealt with a boss like Clara or Mark, one who mistakes control for competence, hit that like button. Subscribe for more true revenge stories where justice isn't loud, but it's devastatingly satisfying.